It's the fresh start of another week, middle of the month, October, and you're welcome to the maiden edition of the Midday Brief right here on Joy News Channel. My name is Kimini Nyamani Amano. Let's get into our headlines. Fire guards Malam Market in Accra destroying several properties and still here in Accra. A fatal motor accident this morning on Graphic Road leaves many dead. Also ahead, Ghanaian Hajj pilgrim busted in Saudi Arabia with unauthorized drugs. In business, dollarization of the economy won't just go away in spite of stern warnings from central bank. We will be talking to a currency expert who explains why just any fix won't work. In election headquarters, we take a critical look at how National Democratic Party is changing the dynamics of election 2012 with the nomination of Nana Kunedu as its presidential candidate. Stay on for details of these stories and more coming up in a bit.
Need some clarity on election issues? Join us on Constituency Watch. This and every Monday to Friday at 10 p.m. Constituency Watch, showing on Joy News, only on Multi TV.
On to our first story. Reports say a member of the task force of Ghana's Hajj Council has been arrested in Saudi Arabia over unauthorized drugs. Although the nature of the drugs is yet to be ascertained, the Ghanaian suspect was still being held for questioning by the Saudi authorities. Now, Daily Guide and newspaper reports indicated that the drugs were discovered in the medicine chest of the Ghanaian medical team, which was then traced to the suspect. We are now joined by Alhaji Hamid. Khalid. Right. He would be throwing more light on and exactly what has been happening, what drugs we are looking at. Good afternoon, sir, and thanks for joining us on the Midday Brief, maiden edition and maiden interview.
Thank you.
But really, how did this happen?
Well, I think that first of all, it's important that I spell out or state that we don't have a drug baron being a member of the National Hajj Committee. Indeed, the gentleman in detention is a member of the National Hajj Committee who led the task force to Saudi Arabia. What really happened is that we have a medical team, and the medical team, we normally buy drugs for the purpose of treating the pilgrims who may fall ill there. And you have a situation where the Saudi authorities have a specific drug list which are acceptable to bring into their country. But I'm sure you know that Ghana as a country that is found within the tropical zones, there are specific diseases that are really specific to the countries along the tropical zone. For instance, malaria. Now, when you talk of malaria drugs, you cannot find it in Saudi Arabia. So as a committee, we need to have those drugs with us. They are also saying that if you have any drugs that has the content, alcohol content in it, they are also not allowed to actually bring to Saudi Arabia. Any drugs that will induce you to sleep and behave like you are on alcohol, they will not also allow it into the country. Now, basically, every year, what the committee does is that we get some of these drugs, even though we have some explanation to give. Last year, similar incident happens, but we provided explanation that there are peculiar diseases, that are peculiar to us, and therefore we needed those drugs to be able to use to treat.
So then, what went wrong this time? If you have been taking the drugs along and they are just medicinal for medicinal purposes, what went wrong this time?
This year, if you observed, the Saudi authorities seems to be a bit strict and difficult in terms of some of these things. You have a situation where over the years, they have a law that says that a lady or a woman cannot go into their country without having a male counterpart accompanying them. Over the years, they've never enforced that law, but this year they are insisting that we need to comply to that particular law. And two, they are also looking at the quantity of medicine that you have, and they always look at the quantity and decide the line of action they need to take. And certainly because this year we were expected to airlift over 5,700, which is unusual in terms of the quota for Ghana. Certainly we needed to have enough of the drugs to take care of these pilgrims. Hence why we have that quantity.
I'm not too sure I'm clear on how you prepare towards the pilgrimage as far as medicines going to Saudi Arabia is concerned. It makes me worry about the kind of relationship you down here have with those in Saudi Arabia, so that if we know that some of these drugs are not supposed to be in Saudi Arabia from any other country, then we should have done the right things, shouldn't we?
No, you see, it is something that is a bit difficult. For instance, I just mentioned malaria. You cannot have a drug in Saudi Arabia.
But then you also mentioned that last year you were able to take some of these medicines because you explained.
And then they were.
So this year you didn't explain.
No, that is why they are detaining the gentleman. We need to go back to them and just explain.
If you had explained, then we wouldn't have the gentleman being detained.
No, the gentleman was actually picked up and detained and wanting to actually go into it. But that is actually what will bring out the explanation. And indeed, officials of National Hajj Committee who are here are ready to go there, so that at least we provide them with evidence of the drug list that we have. So at the end of the day, I believe that
before I find out what drugs they were, as a committee, shouldn't you have the front to be able to negotiate these things before your pilgrims get there?
Yes, but I think that, you see, anybody who understands the process of Hajj organization will appreciate, and I'm sure those who are watching us would understand what it means.
Right.
The point is that when you get there, sometimes the Saudi authorities are unpredictable.
Right.
Something that they will accept today, tomorrow they may not accept it.
So what drugs are we looking at?
Well, I'm told that it is Valium. That is, they said it in the local parlance, blue. But these drugs, sometimes when you go through the process,
of course, they induce some sleep, and they are not allowed.
In 2009, let me inform you that I happened to be there, and I was under serious stress and depression. The doctor actually prescribed that drug, and I had enough sleep. That's actually what relieved me.
It's just Valium we're talking about?
Exactly. That is what actually they identify in the consignment that we have.
So what's happened to the gentleman in question?
Well, we have actually reported to the Foreign Affairs so that they will use the diplomatic process to handle the issue. I'm sure that by the close of tomorrow, we are hopeful that the gentleman will
close of tomorrow.
Yes, we are hopeful.
Oh, is he going to come back?
No, he hasn't committed a crime, and I do believe that because at least as a committee member, he has to take ultimate responsibility.
In other words, he'll finish the journey.
He will.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much,
Alhaji, for joining us in the studio and your time. We've been speaking to Alhaji, lead of the Hajj Committee here in the country. We move on to some other stories where the Electricity Company of Ghana has released a new schedule for the ongoing load shedding exercise. The new schedule is expected to give Ghanaians an insight on the changes made. On the telephone line to explain the issues is the transmission manager of ECG, Samuel Odame. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, madam.
Thanks for joining us on our midday brief maiden edition. Now, you have become really erratic in the load shedding exercise. What's happening?
The load shedding program has been done. Said that once in a while, depending on the situation, we review it. But we more or less publish it once in a month. But we'll be requested to repeat it every week. And as time goes on, we look at the complaints and we try to make the thing more presentable so that people understand the program. But it seems a lot of people don't understand the program.
I agree with you. A lot of people do not understand the program.
Yes.
Could you throw a little more light on what the new schedule would seem like?
Yes. We have a schedule for Accra and the different one schedule for Accra. Then there's a different schedule for the other states. 5 regions which being operated by controlled by ECG. In Accra, we have the day load shedding, then we have the evening load shedding. Now, what's happening is that in Accra, for example, if you go off on Monday, on Tuesday, that you go off on Monday in the morning from 8 o'clock to maybe 6 o'clock in the evening. On Tuesday, you go off again in the evening from 6 to about 10, 11.
That doesn't make the new schedule daily.
It's not daily, because on the third day, you not go off at all.
So how many times in a week should a household expect to go off?
If you look at it, let's say these days, you go off 4 times, then 2 times you not go off. But that is the maximum. That is the worst case.
In the worst case.
Yes.
So what is the ECG doing to make sure that people understand this new schedule in order not to arouse ill feelings, really?
But what I said, that's the worst case. Now, it depends, as you are aware, what is generated for us, that is what we distribute. So if there's no generation, we cannot distribute what is not there. So depending on the quantum that we are giving to shed, if we are giving less quantum to shed, then although you are supposed to go off, let's say today, for example, during the day, we are supposed to shed about 130 megawatts. If we are told to shed, let's say, 70, then of course, those in the group, we will share only half of them. So it will happen that you not go off.
Right.
But that does not, yes. So that's how it happens. If in the evening, what we are supposed to shed is less than what we planned for, then some people will not go off, others will be on.
So how long are we going to endure this?
Now we've drawn up the program. The program we've drawn is up to the end of the month, October. By the end of October, we'll see that if we meet on weekly basis and look at the situation and decide how to go by it. But now, for now, the program that we've drawn is up to the end of October.
Before I let you go.
By the end of October, we would have reached a consensus how to what is available. Then if we have to review the whole program, then we review it and scale it down. But I'm hopeful that it will be scaled down by the end of October.
It means that we're only looking at scaling it down, not getting rid of the whole schedule at the end of October.
It can happen that by the end of this month, we would have got rid of it, depending on whatever we get, the issue we get. I think the government is putting up a lot of plans in place, and we are getting more generation. Right. So by the end of the month, it can happen that if we have enough generation, we will not share loads. Whatever we have, we'll review it, then we'll proceed. That's how the system works.
Right, thank you very much. Samuel Odame is the sub-transmission manager at the ECG. He's been telling us the new schedule will run till the end of the month, or hopefully a review would lead to a reduction in the load shedding exercise. Otherwise, we are likely for the worst case scenario to go off 4 times a week and have electricity supply 2 times a week. We move on to some other stories. On a rather worrying note, a fire has swept through the Mala market in Accra, destroying properties worth of thousands of Ghana cedis. Though the cause of the fire is not known immediately, personnel of the Ghana National Fire Service believe it may be an electrical fault. Eyewitnesses say the fire started around 6 a.m. in one shop and consequently spread to other shops. Victims told Joy News it took over 1 hour for the fire service to get to the scene when they contacted them. Firefighters say access to the Mala market was the major challenge, forcing them to mount a turntable to douse the fire. In all, about the 5 fire tenders and 2 water tankers were brought to the scene to keep the fire under control. Traders who had lost their property in the fire countered their loss and could not control themselves. Public Relations Officer of the Ghana National Fire Service, Billy Anaglate, spoke to Joy News.
The moment there is the slightest fire in here, look at the illegal connections, look at what is even going on. There are people that were even burning other materials behind the market. Accessibility becomes very difficult for us. We could have finished this fire within a few minutes. But how to get to this fire was a problem, accessibility was a problem. There is no single hydrant, water hydrant that we can... Media! Fire service!
Right, so that was from the fire scene earlier today. But in the studio with me is my colleague Solomon Jojo Kobna, who was at the scene as well. And I'd like to find out from you, really, what more happened at the scene today?
There was one particular thing that baffled me. You know, this fire incident has been happening every single time. It's been happening. It's something that is very rampant. And one problem keeps coming, that is access routes. This is not the first time fire has swept through the Mala market. And we talk about creating access routes. It's not been done. So the fire service had a real tough situation fighting the fire. They have to.
We have the fire on the wall, and I'm sure our viewers would like to take a shot at it as well. So please go on.
So as I was saying, so they had a very hard time mounting the dousing the fire, so they had to mount a turntable, and it was very difficult. You know, they had to call to make sure the thing comes. And by the time they came, the fire had swept through half of the market, and it was very bad. And we've been complaining about hydrants. These are like basic standards. We should get hydrants at marketplaces, but there were no hydrants, so they had to go to the Sakaman hydrant to go and fetch water tankers and then come to douse the fire. And this is one issue that worries me a lot, because we keep talking about many people lose millions and thousands of Ghana cedis each time a fire sweeps through markets, but nothing happens. Even
in the new markets, you don't find these lanes you're talking about. They are always overcrowded, and the least fire spreads from one stall to the other, and then that's just it for the market's women.
And this is one question I posed to Anaglate, that is the PRO of, and he told me, well, we don't have the power. It's Ghana Water who is supposed to make sure there are hydrants, and all we can do is to complain. So all he would do is to complain. And this is an update that I would give in our subsequent bulletin to find out why the National Fire Service will not take the action, because they face the problems when there's fire. They have to go and fight it. So they have to find a way of talking to the Ghana Water to get them the hydrants.
Right. Thank you very much for joining us in the studio. You're still watching our maiden edition of the Midday Brief. We'll take a break. We'll be right back. Welcome back. The Crop Research Institute has released its latest edition of maize varieties onto the market after the release of the Golden Jubilee variety in 2007 and the Abontim variety in 2010. The 3 latest editions are yellow hybrid maize, essentially bred to contain provitamin A.
A maize breeder, Manfred Ewell, with the CSIR Crop Research Institute, explained the yellow maize contains provitamin A, which is good for eyesight. Apart from improving vision, provitamin A boosts the immune system by enhancing antibody response. Provitamin A is present in egg yolk, milk product, green leaf or yellow vegetable, as well as fruit. The 6 yellow maize varieties released since 2007 by the Crops Research Institute were generated through careful selection and crossing of several maize varieties. They possess desired traits such as provitamin A nutrients as well as adaptability to the environment. Germplasm, which are the original materials of varieties of maize used to develop the provitamin A-rich yellow maize, were sourced from international agricultural centers such as the International Institute of Tropical Agriculture in Nigeria and the International Maize and Wheat Improvement Center in Mexico. These foreign germplasms were used in combination with local ones.
We grow all these materials in a breeding nursery and then look at those that are adaptable to our conditions. And then we select those that are very good agronomically and are adaptable to our conditions. Then we will send these lines of varieties to the lab and analyze for provitamin A contents. So all those lines of varieties that have high levels of provitamin A and are adaptable to our conditions, we select them.
These lines of varieties were then tested across the major agroecological zones in Ghana. Those that were able to survive the conditions of the environment were finally selected for further production. The process of testing and breeding new varieties could take between 5 and 8 years, crop breeders say. Odonfo, Onwawa and Honampa maize varieties have up to 7 micrograms per gram of provitamin A nutrient.
Odonfo and Onwawa are hybrids, and Honampa is an open pollinated variety. We did this so that those in marginal areas who may not be able to afford the hybrids, as we've been talking about, that the hybrid seeds are expensive, so that they can all have access to this important variety.
The yellow maize is not only provitamin A sufficient. According to Manfred Ewell, they possess other unique traits.
And it's tolerant to this common maize disease called maize streak. It is a disease when it attacks the leaves. If you are not, you can lose all your crop, and it's slightly tolerant to drought. When we did the multi-location testing, in fact, it was adaptable to almost all the major agroecological zones, like in the forest and forest transition zones, and then also in the Guinea savanna zones.
One major challenge that usually besets the entire process is the inability of rural farmers to access new hybrid seeds, a problem brought on by the limited number of seed growers in the country. Again, seed growers, according to Ewell, lack technical know-how in the production of hybrid seeds and as such need more capacity building training to enable them adequately produce hybrid seeds. Breeders are now keen on getting their new maize varieties to farmers. They say they now make sure the Grains and Legumes Development Board have stock of their varieties to produce foundation seeds. Since it is difficult for most rural farmers to come to towns and purchase hybrid seeds from agro-input dealers, breeders have proposed the establishment of mini agro shops in rural communities where the crops are grown so farmers can readily access seeds.
You're watching the maiden edition of the Midday Brief on Joy News. Time now for some business. Now, the Bank of Ghana is to get tough on businesses and institutions pricing goods and services in dollars. In a notice, the central bank reminded the public that under the current foreign exchange laws, the Ghana cedi is the only legal tender in the country. The statement added that according to the current laws, no resident of Ghana other than those licensed and that the Bank of Ghana shall price, advertise, receive or make payments in any other foreign currency. These include currency for goods or services such as school fees, sale and rental of vehicles, real estate, airline tickets and domestic contracts. The statement further cautioned persons involved in the practice to desist because it constitutes a violation of the Foreign Exchange Act. Persons found to be breaching these laws could be slapped with a fine of not more than 8,400 Ghana cedis or get not more than 18 months of imprisonment. We are joined on the line by currency analyst Kofi Ampa, who we informed is skeptical about this move. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, and very good afternoon to your listeners as well.
Absolutely. Now, what impact can this have on our economy?
Certainly, if the Bank of Ghana is able to achieve this, it's certainly going to have a greater impact, especially to the fact that dollarization, the issue of dollarization, will be solved in this country. You understand that dollarization is an effect, not a cause. It is the effect of the macroeconomic uncertainty, a high level of inflation, a lack of confidence in the domestic currency. So therefore, it will bring back the confidence that people have lost in our currency, in terms of business confidence and consumer confidence as well.
And in the event where it fails?
Well, I was of the opinion that in 1998 and in 2001, where similar moves were made by the Bank of Ghana to address this problem. To date, we still have the problem lingering around us. And the second thing, I also believe that I'm not too perturbed about the move by the Bank of Ghana. Is basically that a lot more people who are in this, who are dealing or find themselves culpable in this area,
right,
are strong people, are very strong and influential people in the country. How do we control that? And then for the fact that 80% of the total goods and services that we consume in this country is imported, makes it or can make it very difficult for us to even control that of dollarization. So it is really going to be a big task for the Bank of Ghana to achieve. But not that notwithstanding, we are not saying that the move by the central bank is something that cannot be achieved. It can be achieved, but it needs a lot more vigilance in terms of control and then implementation of the law to be able to achieve that.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, sir. We've been speaking to a currency expert, Samuel Kofi Ampa. We move on to some other stories where recall of Toyota vehicles around the world to affect some users in Ghana. Toyota has confirmed that the recall of some of its models around the world would affect users in the country. In a statement, Toyota Ghana, however, maintained that this has nothing to do with the safety of its vehicles, but rather a defect with its windows. It added that users of these models will receive notification from Toyota to come over to their office for the necessary correction to be carried out. Toyota last week recalled more than 7 million of its vehicles worldwide over faulty window switches. These included Yaris, Corolla, Camry and RAV4 models. That's it for business. You're watching the maiden edition of the Midday Brief on the Joy News channel. I am Kemini Nyamani Amano. Let's get straight into the world of showbiz.
The Ajay Pena singer said he was grateful for many things in life, especially each new day. He said with all the beautiful things that have come his way, as well as those unfortunate situations, all inspired him to chronicle his life.
This is about the music, the musicians that I've met during this journey, this is about the African musician.
Perhaps the book will also serve as a source of motivation for many, if not all. It will also calm curious minds who wants to know more about the music man.
The finale saw 10 beautiful ladies compete for the coveted crown. Who went home with the prize? The 10 girls thrilled the audiences with some great formation dance moves. Do they remind you of any girl group? The Pussycat Dolls, perhaps. exquisite Gifty walked away with the crown. She is one lucky lady.
Miss Universe Ghana.
Taken 2 has not been a big hit, with the critics describing it as just a replay of the original. Nissim plays an ex-CIA agent who travels across Europe to save his estranged daughter, who has been kidnapped on a trip to Paris. According to Paul the Garabedian, an analyst for box office tracker Hollywood.com, it kind of proves that reviews do not matter, adding that audiences just continue to consume the movie. They just love Liam Neeson in his role. Revenues from the film increased by 47% between Friday, its opening day, and Saturday, which gives a good indication of how quickly the film has been commercially successful.
That's it for the showbiz brief. But on another worrying note, a Malam Accra-bound 207 Benz bus early today dawn tipped over the newly constructed overhead bridge for the bus rapid transit on the Graphic Road, resulting in a freak accident. The 23-seater bus was said to be carrying mostly market women when it tipped over the 5-meter overhead bridge around 5:30 a.m. There are conflicting reports as to the number of casualties, but some eyewitnesses say that the bus was carrying at least 10 persons. The victims of the accident have been rushed to the Kolebu Hospital. The accident occurred when the driver's ill-fated attempt to overtake a vehicle on the bypass culminated into it skidding off the road, hitting a makeshift safety barricade before knocking one of the newly installed street lights on that section of the road and finally taking a 5-meter free fall. It took over 2 hours before the badly mangled vehicle was towed from the accident scene, by which time it had drawn a large crowd of onlookers wanting to catch a glimpse of the wreckage. Joining us is the commander of the MTTU ACP, Awone, to give us details. Hello, sir. Well, we do not have him on the line at the moment, but we have an eyewitness account who put in efforts to bring back ACP Awone. But then let's take a look at the eyewitness account.
Police ambulance. The police ambulance will do and confirm and get. The minimum for the minimum nipple to pena, we move somewhere then. Our Mocasa Baconos moon, so no, only timid by you, Nabaconos and San Buia. Number 15, Bank I 21 a year, will be in Cano. Munina, dear, may find some we are not working, you don't want ambulance.
Well, really sad there. And I'm told ACP Awone is currently on our telephone lines. Good afternoon, sir. Hello, good afternoon. Hello, ACP. Hello, good afternoon. Well, we have lost him. We'll do all we can to get him back on the telephone line to throw more light on this freak accident, really. And you're still watching the Joy News channel. This is the maiden edition of the Midday Brief. Let me find out if we still have ACP on the line. Good afternoon. Hello? Hello, sir. Well, unfortunately, we are unable to raise him on the telephone lines. Let's take a sports brief.
Suffolk yesterday survived a scare from New Edubiase to bag all 3 points in week 3 of the 2012 Globe Premier League. The story was, however, not so sweet for the Porcupine Warriors, Kumasi Asante Kotoko, who twice surrendered their lead to Ashanti Gold at the Obuasi Lane Clay Sports Stadium. The results for the matches played over the weekend are: in Accra, had Suffolk 5, New Edubiase 2. In Obuasi, Ashanti Gold and Kumasi Asante Kotoko drew 2-2. In Tema, Amidas Professionals beat Liberty Professionals by 2-0. In Domahinkro, Iduana Stars and Berekum Chelsea drew 0-0. At the Golden City Park, Berekum Chelsea and Wa All Stars also drew 1-1. In Takwa, Mediama SC beat Dwarfs 2-0. And in Kumasi, King Faisal lost 0-1 to Tema Youth. The 15 teams to join host South Africa in the 29th edition of the African Cup of Nations are finally out after a dramatic final weekend of qualifiers which saw tears of joy and pain across the continent. The qualifiers for the 2013 Orange African Cup of Nations are Algeria, Angola, Burkina Faso, Cape Verde Islands, Democratic Republic of Congo, Ethiopia, Ghana, Ivory Coast, Mali, Morocco, Niger, Nigeria, South Africa, Togo, Tunisia and Zambia, the current title holders. Now, having guided Ghana to qualify for the African Cup of Nations, Black Stars coach Kwesi Appiah has set his sights on winning the competition. The Black Stars qualified for next year's tournament in South Africa with a 1-0 victory over Malawi in Lilongwe on Saturday to record a 3-0 aggregate score over the two legs. In the UK, Tom Cleverley believes Manchester United teammate Wayne Rooney can emerge as England's long-term captain. Rooney scored twice in England's 5-0 victory over San Marino on Friday after being given the armband in the absence of Steven Gerrard and Frank Lampard. Also in some Formula One news, double world champion Sebastian Vettel is set to join Ferrari in 2014, with Felipe Massa remaining with the Italian team for the next season. Sources inside Ferrari say they have signed a contract with Vettel, which includes an option for the German to join them in 2014.
That's it for the sports brief. Election headquarters is next. We apologize we're unable to bring you ACP Awuni. As and when we're able to raise him on the telephone line, on the telephone line, we'll bring him back to throw more light on the freak accident earlier today. Election headquarters is next.